Hello, and welcome to Delta Force. With the game's full release scheduled for the 5th of December, it is quickly becoming a hot contender for a game that's going to tide us over to the next Battlefield release. After 2042 and the myriads of problems that came with, oh, it still hurts.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
We're kind of left with a little bit of a conundrum. Honestly, it feels as if Battlefield is its own real genre in terms of first-person shooters. I don't think I've found a game that has engaged me as much as 3 or even 4 when it was pretty much fixed, albeit a year after a release. 2042 was such a disappointment, and you've heard us say that plenty of times on this channel. And we need something that's kind of like the best of 3, but something fresh. And if I'm honest, I haven't really seen a lot out there. Now, obviously, people can point to games like BattleBit or extraction shooters, which have that realistic, rounded feeling. But honestly, extraction shooters do not really do it for us. I get the appeal, I really do understand it. Games like Warzone and Tarkov would be nowhere near as popular if they didn't have some sort of way of gripping people by the scruff of the neck and keeping them in the game. So what do we do when we don't have a Battlefield game that's any good? At least, not for a while. In comes Delta Force, which I believe is a spiritual sequel or successor to a long-standing series. Honestly, if it is, I've never heard of the original series, and I apologise to any fans who happen to come across this video. It's advertised as a full package deal. A campaign, a multiplayer mode, and an extraction mode. It's also sold itself as big team battles, with defined roles, destructible environments, and all the good stuff we've been missing since Bad Company 2. However, there are some caveats, mainly in the business side of it. And as we've recently learned in the gaming industry, business decisions can often have the biggest effect on the gameplay itself. That being said, there was a lot of good press coming out of this. There had been a couple of closed tests for YouTubers and Twitch streamers, and they had good things to say. I was hearing that the gunplay and the squad mechanics are a really good alternative. And I was also hearing decent things from the developers who promised there'd be no pay to win, and it wasn't going to be overstuffed with DLC, content packs, and stuff like that. So, during Steam's Next Fest, I was able to jump on the open beta and give it a try myself. This video is not going to be a full analysis like a review. It's not going to go into specific categories like gameplay, presentation, audio, because really, it's still a beta version I'm playing. What I will do instead is go through a couple of main features and points I want to discuss. There are some admin notes. 1. I did not play anything other than the multiplayer mode, Havoc. The campaign's not available in the beta, and the extraction mode, while seemingly being pushed as quite a significant offering, I tried maybe twice. First to do the tutorial, and second, a game where I lasted about 3 minutes. Number 2. The version that you're seeing on the screen is not the most up-to-date version of the game that they released as a test scenario. I found out that there was a newer version available to audiences in China. Oddly enough, most of the footage I found of that seems to be people playing it on a mobile. Good for you. According to some of those creators that had access to that, it came with a lot more features and a lot better representation of what to expect when the game launches. That being said, I can only play what's in front of me, and I do have some things that I feel like need to be talked about. So what's the short version of my thoughts on this game? It's quite good. It's not perfect. It's certainly not to the standard that Battlefield 3 set. But it's a heck of a lot better than what 2042 did. There are some choices that mirror what 2042 attempted, and that I'm not a fan of in general, but they've seemingly approached them in a lot better way than DICE did. And this leads me on to the first thing I really want to discuss, the fact that it's still a hero shooter. It's been one of our biggest complaints about 2042, swapping out class roles for characters, and I'm still not overly convinced it's the best way to do something like this. That said, 2042's operators felt extremely generic and, at worst, annoying. The special skills amounted to gimmicks. At worst, they felt like awful renditions of a typical class system we saw in earlier iterations of Battlefield. In Delta, I'd say I'm quite impressed on how they've done heroes/operators. Specifically, the abilities. The footage in this video centers around 3 of those characters. First is Luna, the recon character I chose. Her abilities turned out to be extremely useful and didn't just involve her sitting at the back of a map with a long-range rifle and trying to pick off headshots. Instead, her abilities are more about scouting positions and getting intel for the rest of the team. The signature bow that she's carrying on her back actually acts as an improvised UAV. When you fire the recon arrow up on an arc, it will spot every operator it passes over in a defined radius. But it's not just the obvious abilities like the bow. Her passive is that every time she lands a hit on an enemy with a round, it automatically spots them, albeit for about a second. It's weird, it's something so simple, yet it makes such a lot of sense considering that they are a recon-based character. Then there's Shepard. Now, this operator is much more focused about getting in amongst the enemy and disrupting their abilities. As well as having a much more effective grenade explosion, their ultimate, which I think is the best way to describe it, is a wrist-mounted drone that when launched can disrupt enemy equipment and abilities. Very useful when you're making a push and you need to get rid of traps, explosives and other gear like that. It can also keep operators pinned in place, or at least slow them down a lot. The final character I tried out is Stinger. Now, given my absolute cack-handedness with a mouse and keyboard, I usually put myself as the healer so I can just run around giving people health and basically making myself as useful as possible. This is Stinger's bread and butter. Instead of a lethal grenade, he comes equipped with a smoke grenade. His drone, they like their drones in this game, has the ability to create a wall of smoke that you can control in terms of direction once launched. And their main piece of equipment is a stim pistol that allows for much quicker healing of everybody, not just squad members, as well as being able to hit people with a healing stim from range, and allows you to heal yourself a lot more quickly than just hiding in a corner. And you know what makes these much better than the operators from 2042? They feel important. Every aspect of their gear, their passives, their battlefield roles, they make sense. Okay, they may not be a class system like we're used to, but they're actually important when you want to work as a cohesive team. If you're playing the recon character, you are responsible for spotting and giving information out to your team. You cannot play every role with one character. Your character dictates your role. In some regards, that's how a hero-type character should be used in a class-based shooter. Then there is the gunplay and weapon customization. Being from a free-to-play developer, I was quite worried that we were going to be very limited in terms of customization and weapon loadouts. I could not have been more wrong. First of all, the level of customization for weapons is insane. You can make a bog-standard AR, or you can make an abomination that would look good at a Tarkov convention. And unlike the gunsmith system in most recent Call of Duty games, you don't have to mix and match the weapons you want to unlock attachments for. You pick a weapon you like, you use it, you earn the attachments for that weapon. You know, like it used to be. Where the free-to-play elements sort of sneak in are the fact that you can earn boosters for weapons. So for example, here you see me using weapon XP tokens for the Vector. I earn those fairly, and fairly regularly in fact. I got one for each match that I finished because I'd earned enough XP to level up. At one point I probably unlocked a weapon up to tier 50-ish, I think, purely on using those weapon XP tokens. Now the game may give you the ability to pay for those tokens with real money in the final release, and that could end up being a problem. At this moment, I don't see any evidence of this. I think more skill is required to use those weapons effectively, but I am happy to be told otherwise. In terms of how the weapons work in the game, I have absolutely no complaints. Sniper rifles felt heavy. The SMGs felt like bullet hoses, especially when you're using the Vector. Even the standard pistols had some nice punch to them. My first match, I was struggling with adapting to mouse and keyboard, but by the match 3, I think, I was topping the leaderboard for kills. Time to kill also feels a bit hit and miss, kind of like you're in the middle looking for the sweet spot between realistic and fair. For the most part, I genuinely felt like I was doing better with weapons that I had learnt to use properly, rather than just going with something that felt like a meta weapon. I've been pretty positive so far, but there is one part where I do have some complaints. There were 2 maps available on the beta in terms of the multiplayer mode. One was set in a desert town that kind of led into a small city, and the second was a coastline facility that led up into the mountains and ended on what can be best described as a supervillain mountainside lair. On the face of it, these maps are fine. They're not good, they're not poor, they're fine. One bit that was not fine was the lack of proper destruction. There's a pinch of salt when I'm talking about this, because the fact is, I was not playing the most current version of the game. That being said, I remember seeing trailers for the technical test I was a part of, including entire warehouses being brought to the ground. I didn't see that once. In terms of the maps themselves and how they flowed when you're in them, the game mode we played was kind of a mix between Rush and Conquest. Maps split into sections, Sector A, Sector B, etc. Attackers have to go take each sections, defenders have to hold them. Rather than the attackers focusing on a site or a particular item, they have to take and hold an area of those sections. This area has to be held for the entirety of it. First section, always comprised of one area, kind of like an introduction to the map itself. And then the next few sections were split into 2 zones. Kind of works like Conquest. Attackers have to take and hold, defenders have to keep that from happening. Means that defenders had a chance to lose one area in each sector, but take it back. And still hold on to the win if they stop the attacking team from taking the other zone or area. This is very hard to explain. My complaints aren't with the placement of the zones and the way the map is split up. My issue is that the maps didn't feel alive, and they felt more like movie sets. It's the same issue that 2042 had. We were told we'd be able to level entire buildings, it just never happened. Even when people were using some of the most powerful abilities in the game, like an artillery strike or a missile that you can call up if you build up enough squad play points. It's a small complaint compared to the overall experience. I'm expecting better and more maps in the final version on the 5th of December. In fact, I've already seen trailers and a bit of gameplay advertising a brand new map that I've never seen before that's kind of set in a trench system. Do I think this could be as good as Peak Battlefield? No, not really, because very few things could actually get to that level. Now, do I think it's a good alternative to current Battlefield? Oh yes, I do. My reservations regarding the pay-to-win aspects and those kind of policies I'll have to address in the final version. But as it stands, I'm willing to give this a chance, and I'd encourage people to have a look if they're missing that kind of large-scale tactical Battlefield experience. Now, let's be honest, being a free-to-play game, there's no real risk in at least giving it a chance. So roll on December 5th, because I'm definitely jumping in. Thank you again. Hopefully the next video you'll be seeing is our end of year review. You know, if we can get time to all meet up as a group.